following a disappointing performance against Lamont Roach Jr. in their most recent bout, which resulted in a contentious majority draw. Gervonta "Tank" Davis breaks his silence, causing the boxing world to stir once more. Tensions are rising as both Davis and Roach prepare for a much-anticipated rematch, and the bout, which happened at the Barclays Center, has generated intense discussions among combatants, fans, and commentators. With an impeccable record of 30 victories, including 28 via knockout, Davis, a native of Baltimore, has been a dominant force in the sport. However, his most recent performance has sparked doubts about his preparation, focus, and even his killer instinct. Roach, the WBA super featherweight champion and resident of Washington, D.C., has taken advantage of the situation and used his newfound fame to harass Davis mercilessly in interviews and on websites like X. Although there was a lot of controversy leading up to their first fight, the rematch is expected to be much more intense. In keeping with his tendency to take down controversial remarks, Davis, who had been unusually silent in the weeks after the fight, recently went to X to retaliate at Roach by threatening a death sentence at their next meeting. He quickly erased the tweet. Roach had been harassing Davis for weeks, citing their amateur background and asserting that he had the advantage from the beginning, before this outburst. Roach said, "As amateurs, we collided twice, during an interview with Chad Johnson and Shannon Sharp on Nightcap. That gave me the advantage. I was aware of what I was up against." Roach saw the draw as confirmation rather than a setback. He remarked, "When he took a knee, it proved my game plan was working," in reference to a crucial incident in round 9 that has since grown to be the fight's most famous disagreement. Much of the post-fight conversation has been stoked by that moment, in which Davis fell to the ground following a barrage of blows from Roach. With one of Roach's clean 3-punch combinations landing in Davis's eye, the superstar turned away and took a knee. Referee Steve Willis failed to declare it a knockdown after starting the required 10 count but mysteriously stopping at 3. Confusion was increased when Davis's trainer, Calvin Ford, came onto the ring apron in the middle of the bout to use a towel to clean his fighter's face. This was a blatant infraction of boxing regulations that might have resulted in disqualification. Willis, however, let the altercation go on, which infuriated Roach and his group. "He started counting, then stopped," Roach remarked, his voice full of displeasure. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Keep counting." According to Roach's side, the incident should have given him a 10-8 round, possibly shifting the scorecards in his favor. Instead, it ended in a draw that left both combatants unhappy, but for opposite reasons. The judges gave Davis 116-112, Roach 115-113, and Davis 114-114. During the post-fight press conference, Davis, who is used to giving knockouts, gave an odd explanation, seemingly unconcerned by the result. He smiled as the audience jeered, "I just got my hair done 2 days ago, and she put grease in my hair. When I was sweating, it came into my face and burned my eyes. That's why we need ring girls," he said, acknowledging that he had lost track of the rounds. He dismissed the draw by promising to run it back. But for Roach, the bout was a turning point in his career. Drawing confidence from previous underdog fights against fighters like Jairo Lopez and Hector Garcia, he went into the ring with a chip on his shoulder despite the fact that his odds were as high as plus 900. He said, "I've been here before," to Johnson and Sharp. "When my back's against the ropes, it's time to show up." He showed up by putting pressure on a wary Davis and hitting shots that clearly shook the favorite. "Insistence on, I was winning rounds," Roach said. "I wasn't outboxed by him. He wasn't trying to set me up. The ring was under my control." Instead of deterring him, the knee incident strengthened his resolve. "It showed me what we were doing was working," he stated. The curiosity was only increased by Davis's actions during the fight and fight week. He was known for his easygoing manner, but he went above and above in terms of tardiness, showing up 90 minutes late for the weigh-in and almost 4.5 hours late for the first press conference in New York. He looked preoccupied in the ring, twice averting his eyes from Roach to argue with Willis, only to be caught off guard by crisp blows. Prime video cameras captured him shrieking, "Listen to me," over Ford's advice in between rounds. Given the stakes, many saw his justification for taking a knee, that his eyes were burning from hair grease, to be flimsy. He told reporters, "I didn't want to get caught while my eyes were burning. I'd rather take the knee because you could get knocked out like that. I had no idea that may result in your disqualification." The uncalled knockdown wasn't the last of the officiating errors. Boxing greats like Oscar de la Hoya and Teddy Atlas were perplexed by Willis's decision to not sanction Ford for his mid-round interference. Given his background with Golden Boy events, former champion-turned-promoter de la Hoya expressed surprise at Willis's performance. "If you took a knee in the 90s or 2000s, you're losing a point, bottom line," he stated. Maybe he was starstruck. Atlas, a well-known analyst and coach, was less constrained. "I'm cynical because this sport has made me cynical," he said. "We require better referees, more knowledgeable, skilled officials. That referee wouldn't have let Roach to get away with what he allowed Tank to do. I'm not sure if honesty was the problem." Atlas contended that the knee ought to have been declared a knockdown, giving Roach a 10-8 round and possibly the victory. Top boxers Terence Crawford and Ryan Garcia have commented on the topic and joined Roach in demanding accountability. The pound-for-pound elite, Crawford joked, "I had no idea that was a rule. I suppose I was asleep when that one was passed." Garcia, who competed against Davis in 2023, repeated the idea that the sport's best performers benefit from its irregularities. "Tank's a star," declared Atlas. "He generates pay-per-view numbers, establishes gate records, and draws people in. He carries that with him." In fact, the bout allegedly brought in a record number of spectators to Barclays Center, highlighting Davis's appeal even in spite of his erratic performance. But Roach isn't going to let Davis's fame overwhelm his story. He remarked, "He's never been in the ring with a guy like me," highlighting his skill set, punching force, and calm manner. "I bullied the bully." His self-assurance comes from a lifetime of boxing circles that intersected with Davis's, in addition to their amateur bouts. Roach bulked up to lightweight for this fight because he grew up in comparable surroundings and wanted to be physically intimidating against the smaller-framed Davis. "I was popping my jab, making him think," he explained. He had to be cautious because he was worried about counters. For his part, Davis has promised to make things right. He promised a different result in the rematch after taking a week off to recuperate after the fight. He tweeted, "3 weeks of training does this to you," suggesting a renewed sense of purpose. Things will be very different this time. However, his actions, removing offensive tweets, making jokes about hair grease, and losing track of rounds, indicate a lack of situational awareness that has both fans and commentators concerned. Did one of the greatest boxers have a bad night, or does this mean the 30-year-old has lost the spark that made him a box office titan? Davis's obligatory clause guarantees the rematch, which looms as a potential opportunity for atonement or vindication. Encouraged by his performance, Roach has continued to exert pressure on X by giving interviews and escalating the rivalry. Davis retorted in a since-deleted post, "All this talk has to stop," echoing the cries of his corner during the altercation. "Stop it, y'all know how I'm coming." Unfazed, Roach has a different perspective. He recalled their in-ring teasing and declared, "He's not going to scare me." He would respond, "That ain't nothing, if I struck him. Too slow, I would reply if he struck me." The stakes are extremely high as the boxing world watches round 2. For Davis, it's about taking back his air of superiority. Roach wants to demonstrate that the initial altercation wasn't an anomaly. Additionally, it's an opportunity for spectators to test whether the sport's administrators, commissions, umpires, and all can provide a more pristine and equitable show. "This isn't football," Atlas said. "There's no pit row in boxing." It's unclear if Willis's whistle, Roach's determination, or Davis's knee will define the story, but one thing is for sure, the gloves are off and the heat is on.